I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I love helping parents heal. You all are the most enlightened group of souls on the planet today, and I'm completely sure of that. So it's an honor to speak. And I just wanted to give a quick little opener about the importance of courage, because all of you are already so courageous. And I've been lately just getting all this guidance from my departed and my clients departed about how the world is calling us to be courageous. And so what does that mean? So I've written a whole talk about it, but I'm going to give a mini version right now. So how many of you understand that you have an incredible, courageous heart simply because you have survived the greatest loss that anyone can ever survive, and you are still breathing, you are still getting out of bed, you are coming to groups like this, you are seeking answers? That is the greatest courageous act you could ever do. And I always say that grief is our divine mother's spiritual teacher, the great challenger of everything we believe. And it takes courage to believe in overriding the cynical, logical, left brain preference of our world that we all live in, and how everything here is all about being logical, cynical, all these things that are only half of who we are. Because as you all know, we're human, but we're also divine. Our core essence is as a divine being. And to embrace that core part of us, the essence of our spirit and our connection to the divine, and that our departed are always with us, that there's no such thing as death, that takes courage. And when you have that glimmer of spirit in the corner of the room, and you trust and believe that that's your departed child, or you hear that voice whispering in your ear, giving you guidance, and you know that's your son or your daughter, and you trust it, that is the most courageous act of your life. And I honor you for it. Did you know that the word courage comes from the Latin root cor, C-O-U-R, which means heart? Isn't that beautiful? Courage is defined as the ability to do something that frightens us, but also to have strength in the face of pain or grief. That is the greatest courage. And on a lighter note, William Shakespeare once wrote, "That's a valiant flea that dares eat his breakfast on the lip of a lion." And I've always loved that image, because I feel like any of us who are grieving, we feel like the brave flea eating breakfast on the lip of a lion, because the lion is grief. And the lion is overwhelming pain and depression and all the things that traditionally go along with grief. And yet, if we are the flea, the brave flea in the face of all that, we have courage, and we are seeking a different way to view it. I also recently became an ordained unity minister, and unity teaches that we are all part of God consciousness, that God consciousness is not a man in the sky, but a loving consciousness that runs this universe and exists within all of us. And I love that. So the unity definition of courage is a spiritual quality that enables us to remain poised and centered in our God the Good consciousness amidst great difficulties and danger. All of you face that grief, difficulty, and danger every day of your life, and yet standing in your poise and centeredness in believing beyond the physical that the invisible exists, that is you expressing incredible courage. So, and then in Psalms 31, it says, "Be strong and let your heart take courage." And that's significant because our heart is where the courage comes from. It doesn't come from the mind. The mind will talk you out of doing anything brave, because the mind and the ego, they're simply here to help us survive. So they're probably telling you, just go to bed and shut down and, and, don't step up in the world. But your heart is where your courage is. And I wrote a book years ago called Your Divine Lens, and it's about making that shift between our ego way of viewing the world and our more spiritual way of viewing the world. And I was given a vision. It's very similar to this image on my screen that I had in a fever dream one night, where I was held by the angels and the guides, and I was shown. And it's so interesting because this vision came to me in 2015, before the world got as crazy as it is today. And I was being told by this whole posse of guides and spirits, hey, things could get really seemingly dark on earth, but I want you to hold on to this vision that the light is always winning, no matter how it looks. The love is always winning, no matter how it looks there on earth. And they just kept pouring that into me, showing me this vision. And I remember waking up thinking, well, okay, but I kind of already know that. And then the world went where it's been since 2015. And I understood why I was given that vision, because our greatest courage now is still believing that the light is winning, that the love is winning. And I know you guys you're blessed to live in England, but I live in the United States. So I think you know what I'm talking about over here. And so I wrote this part of my Divine Lens book. It's a quote about courage. I'm just going to read it to you quickly. Because everything that ever mattered lived in the leap, that one moment of taking a breath and trusting in the wind to carry you, seeing suddenly that letting go is everything. Seeing suddenly that letting go is everything, because then we're trusting in the divine order. So some questions to ask yourself on your daily meditation, because I'm trusting that all of you have a daily meditation or prayer practice where you quiet the mind, open the heart, and connect to your departed. And if you don't, see me later. So when you're in that moment of spiritual practice and connection, it's good to ask yourself questions like, when have I demonstrated great courage in my life? And where did that take my life? And another good question is, when have I not been courageous, but should have been? And what were the ramifications of that? And what part of my life now demands courage, more courage, to make it better? And am I willing to use courage to trust my connection to my departed child, no matter what my cynical friends or family may tell me? Do I trust in that connection? And I know many of you have probably maybe lost some friends or felt separated from some of your family members because, most of the world does not believe in this connection to the departed. And in fact, my grieving clients tell me that their best friend would be on a walk with them after their child died, and they would start telling their friend about these amazing experiences they're having with communication with their departed child. And the best friend would say things like, well, I'm glad that makes you feel better, like demeaning them, like those beliefs aren't real. And I'm sure many of you have had that experience. So open your heart, take courage. You are the flea on the lip of the lion, eating your breakfast and trusting in that courage that, yes, this is a world where the invisible realms are more real than the visible. So as we have courage to trust in God consciousness and angels and departed loved ones guiding us and spirit guides, we are trusting and believing with our heart in spite of what the logic mind may tell us. And that courage and that trust is life-changing. And I've talked to enough grieving parents who are my clients to know that many of them before their great loss did not really believe in anything beyond the physical, and that everything has changed for them as their departed child teaches them, because they're our teachers. They had the courage to jump into this world and have a brief lifetime simply to help us all wake up, especially you, the parents. So ask yourself, am I courageous enough to trust in what I feel in my heart every single day, no matter what the world tells me? Am I courageous enough that even when my life feels chaotic and lost and confused, that I know there's a loving divine order consciousness still guiding me? And believing fiercely that the light is always winning. That's a tough one for us Americans over here. I think you guys are doing better than us in England, but to remember that the light is always winning, no matter how things seem. And I've also noticed that non-grievers, and how many of you maybe feel that you don't have any close friends anymore who've never had great loss? Well, sort of me too, because, I lost my husband in 1979 when I was 29, and that has separated my friends and community for a long time now, where the people who've experienced great loss are the courageous, strong, spiritually aware souls. And that's who I choose to spend my time with. And it takes courage for us to love one another, and especially love maybe family members or friends who've rejected our beliefs, to love them fearlessly, soul to soul, and hold a vision of their highest self, of them sort of waking up to these bigger ideas when their soul is ready. That takes courage. And it takes courage to see God the good inside of us, even when we may feel guilt, or we may feel that we see our flaws and they're huge, because we're human. So of course we're going to have flaws, and we see our own missteps and we blame ourselves. So many of the moms I've worked with have, we've had to spend a lot of time processing all the things they wish they had done differently when their child was here. But I'm here to tell you, no, it was perfect the way it unfolded, because it brought you to your great spiritual awakening. It brought your beautiful soul son or daughter to be able to be the spiritual teacher of the divine for you, especially when they cross into the other realms. So remember, it takes great courage for you to be here today with Helping Parents Heal, trusting in the unseen world, trusting that your soul has a plan, trusting that your departed child is always there for you. So quickly, let me just sum up. I've got 3 steps I want to leave with you to help you maintain that courage of your heart. Number 1, you have to meditate every day, people. And this is my mala, one of my favorite malas. Actually, Elizabeth gave me this one a long time ago. And to be able to sit and use mantra on every bead, quiets the mind, opens the heart, reconnects you with your courageous soul. So that is a daily requirement. Every day, it's very good, number 2 step, that you review your life. Ask those important questions. Have I been courageous this week or yesterday? Or am I being courageous today? How can I be more courageous in my life, in my beliefs? And another great question is, how will I view this moment when I'm on the other side having my soul review? I really love that question, because you all know that when we cross over, one of the first things that happens is that our guides and our angels and our higher consciousness help us review the lifetime that we've just had in a very loving way. We don't re-experience the pain or the trauma, but we really see. And usually what souls see is they go, what was I afraid of? Why wasn't I loving and living more courageously there? So understand that that's how you want to live now, because you want to be able to have that soul review where you go, wow, I overcame my fears and I trusted my heart and I believed my departed were there for me. I didn't dismiss them and I believed in their signs, and I helped other people who were grieving to do the same. So I had one other thing I wanted the third point, dream courageously. Now, all of you are enlightened beings, so you already know that many of your dreams, especially when you're recently in grief, is that these are visits from your departed, and they're your soul traveling in the divine realms to connect to your departed. And these dreams also require courage, because you can wake up and go, oh, that was a crazy dream, and dismiss it. That's what most of the world does. Or you can wake up and get out your notebook and your pen and write it down as clearly as you can. And I can guarantee you, every person you love, when they cross, they are going to spend a lot of time coming back to help you, to talk to you, to show up for you in dreams, because that's when your mind is finally quiet and they can get through to you. So dream courageously and trust it. So just remember, you have a new life after grief and loss. And Terry and I were just talking about that before this began, that no one is the same after devastating loss, but everyone is bigger and better and more brave and more loving and more spiritually wise after a great loss. So yes, your career might change, your whole life trajectory may change, but it's all exactly what you agreed to learn and how you agreed to change when you went through this. So I had a closing little thing here. So another you guys are from England, but I've always been a Shakespeare person. So I love, it's from Macbeth, screw your courage to the sticking place, because we have to screw our courage to the sticking place to trust that our departed child is talking to us, and to not cower down and not be able to share that and speak our truth with people around us who may doubt that. And they're always telling us, these children and my departed husband and my departed other loved ones, they're always saying, it's okay, I'm okay. I want you to be happy there and to fulfill your own soul mission there. And you're going to be with me soon enough on this other side. But stay there and grow and evolve. That's why you're still there. And so whenever I feel like giving up, or, gosh, life is too hard, I just remember that, yes, I'm still here because I'm still needing to grow and evolve. And it takes courage for us at any age, at any stage of our life, to say yes to the scary, unconventional path of spiritual growth that we're all on, because of beautiful, divine, spiritual teacher, Mother Grief. And so on that note, I'll stop talking and I'll just shut up, and we can do question and answer. We can also talk about numerology, because so let me just quickly tell you that when my husband Paul died in 1979, the thing that changed my life was numerology. And I've been doing it with clients for decades. And so that has always been like my gateway into connecting to the departed. Now, there's so many other beautiful ways, but that's just one of my given to me gifts that I've used in this lifetime. So, all right, let's do questions.
Okay. Does anybody have a question for Stu? If you put your hand up, there's none in the chat. Anyone?
Well, let me get it. I'll get it warmed up, Terry, by talking about your numerology. Is that okay?
Perfect.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So Terry is on the path of the Libra 22 Master Soul. Now, the 22 number is based in the number 4. 4 is very practical, responsible, hardworking. That's also, I'm on the 22-4. And so we can be incredibly good at our jobs and hardworking, but not really look up at the bigger picture of the purpose of life and our spiritual essence, which is the 22 vibration. And for both me and Terry, it was deep loss. Mine when I was 29 with my husband, and Terry with her beautiful son, that woke us both up to the recognition of our job here as a 22 master soul to help shift consciousness. And what's so cool about Terry's numbers is that her son departed 7 years ago. She's in a 7 personal year right now in a new cycle. And in numerology, it's so wild how, like, I'll be working with a new client and I'll know they've lost a child, and I've outlined all their 9-year reinvention cycles that are simple numerology. I'll send you a workbook afterwards if you'd like to understand it, or it's in all my books that are on Amazon. But you do that numerology, and always the parents lost the child when the mom specifically was going through a 1-year reinvention point. Duh, because grief is our greatest reinvention. And here is Terry in her 7 very spiritual, intuitive, focused year. And as you guys know, she's doing all kinds of amazing spiritual work in the world now. And she's in the 2nd Saturn return, that time that we all hit in our late 50s, when we do really wake up. It's kind of like the second soul awakening of the lifetime. And her life is just taking off in ways she never could have imagined. And her beautiful son is and was a Pisces 11 master soul, incredibly sensitive, incredibly evolved. And often these 11 path souls don't stay long here, these Pisces 11, because of their deep sensitivity and their very evolved soul. So her soul agreement, another cool thing, he was in a 7 personal year when he crossed, which is a very spiritual, unearthly year. And the soul agreement that Terry has with her son, and that soul agreement still exists, is that he is the 11, she's the 22. Those are both master soul numbers. And together their agreement is the number 33, the highest frequency sacred number that there is. So Terry, when you say your son woke you up, boy, did he. Your soul agreement was the 33.
Wow, amazing. So yeah, amazing. And it's just like, I've always, since he woke me up, suddenly you just have this deep beliefs. It's not just being woken up, but it's just this wisdom and the knowing. So it's more than a belief, it's a knowing, right?
It's a knowing, right.
Yeah.
That's so beautifully put, because people will come up to me and go, well, how do you know all this is true? And I'll just go, I know it in my cells. It's not a belief out here. It's truly how I experience life and the world since my great moment of awakening. And so, yes, it no longer is some abstract belief that lives in our heads. It's how we live and breathe and think every day.
Yeah, thank you for doing that, Sue. That was just wonderful to know about. Connect with it. So Val is asking, how can you best align with your soul's purpose?
Yeah, great question. And I've written a ton of books about that too. It's one of my favorite topics. In fact, I just gave a talk that's on YouTube, I think, called Your Divine Self-Expression, all about that. But what it is that we each come here with a very unique soul mission. And you can get that from numerology, you can get that from astrology, you can get it from career tests, all kinds of different ways. I personally love numerology. And that kind of gives you a beginning understanding of what your path is about. That's what I do with clients. I help them understand that numerology soul mission that they're on. And I found it to be so helpful to people. But the other thing you can do is that daily meditation. And I laugh when I say that, because so many people think that that's hard. It's not. It's like taking this little spiritual bath once a day. It could just be 10 minutes, 20 minutes, where you sit in the quiet, do your mantra, quiet the mind, open the heart. It's so refreshing to have the mind shut up for a minute and the heart open. And in those moments, that's when you can even ask, like, what am I here to do? And certainly at a big turning point in my life, I had been a writer and executive editor of magazines for many decades, in spite of knowing all this stuff that I do now. And I would only share this stuff with friends, very close friends, because I didn't want to be discriminated against in my job, as an important executive editor. That's a very logical title, right? So finally, when I had my sort of dark night of the soul, I was in my early 40s, I think. And I, in that career, just crashed and burned. And some of you have probably hit a moment like that where you start going, wait a minute, who am I? Why am I here? And the voice that came through so loud in my meditation, I was a single mom with a young daughter, hardly make the mortgage, about to go bankrupt. And the voice said, the only thing you're here to do and your only path to success is by being the spiritual teacher, using numbers, intuition that you've always given away for free. And this was way back in the early 90s, before people would even consider that you could be like an intuitive coach and make a living from it. And I remember thinking about that and then going, well, then how am I going to pay the mortgage? And finally, my heart was just so clear. It's like, that's all I could do anymore. I had to be me. And that courage that it took to launch a business doing what I do now and trust that it would grow, I guarantee you that your true path may be unconventional. It may be not the logical thing, but if you give it your heart and soul, it will give you magic and miracles. I hope I answered your question. One other thing I'd like to add to that is that your purpose, your direction is also always changing, not changing completely, but being tweaked. So when I first started doing this work, I called myself a career intuitive because I knew I could help people find their soul mission and soul purpose. And I wasn't courageous enough to say, oh, and by the way, if you have departed loved ones, they're going to be coming in and giving me answers. But during the process of working with clients, those departed loved ones, I couldn't ignore. So then I had to be very brave and say, and I can help you connect to your departed. And of course, be shunned by my Catholic Southern family for those beliefs. And I'm still kind of shunned by them. But for that, because Catholics believe that only the priest can talk to God, right? And we know that's crazy. We all have that pipeline. So just know that, yes, you have a purpose, and that when you feel it needs a change or a tweak, ask for that help, lift up, talk specifically to your departed and say, show me my next step, show me what to do. And even if it's courageous, just do it.
Perfect.
Oh, and that was the next question, wasn't it? Can the soul journey change? Do you want me to talk about that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let me read the whole question here. Or is it set in stone, or do we always? Oh, this is a good question. Okay, good. So yes, everything here is this amazing combination of choice and destiny, even though I don't like to use the word destiny. In other words, our soul, before we drop in, we go, hey, me and Terry, we said, I really want to evolve when I'm down there. I really want to push myself to grow and wake up. And then I really want to help others too. Collective consciousness really needs a collective awakening. So I'm willing to jump in and do that. But every step along the way, especially the painful steps, I had to make a choice. Am I going to step up to my true work, my courageous path, or am I going to kind of shut down and just survive? Now, grief does make us shut down and just survive for a while, and that's totally fine. But when you're ready, that soul mission in you is waiting, and it's so ready to open up. And yes, it changes according to our choices. So for example, I have a beloved first love who we met in our early 20s, and such a beautiful soul named Jeff before I met my husband that later died. And Jeff is and was one of the most aware, beautiful souls. His choice was to be cynical. His choice was to not believe in anything beyond the physical. And even that choice led him to addictions because he was so sensitive and intuitive, and he was trying to deny all that. And so those choices of his definitely determined his life work after that. And kind of the lonely, depressing job that he had that he never would change, and just a lot of things about his life. There were always moments where he could have made a change and he would not do it. He just refused. And he died suddenly the day after my ordination. I got the word of it that he had died that night. And oh, my Jeff. And you know, the only thing I could think was his soul felt stuck in a pattern that he couldn't break here on earth. And so by crossing over, he was able to hit the reset button. And in dreams, he came back to me at first feeling like, you know, regretful and lost. And I kept saying, look, just open your heart, move to the light, move to the love. And now he's coming back in dreams going, I understand it all now. And he looks young and healthy and sweet the way he did when I met him. But, you know, it's not a wasted lifetime. He learned a tremendous amount by not living true to his path. And so we all evolve one way or the other. It's just up to us. Am I going to do it the more graceful way in alignment with my soul's wisdom and my spiritual awareness, or am I going to kind of hide out and try to find an easy way out? And there's really no such thing. But yeah, so we get to make a choice, and that does influence our path. I hope that answers your question.
Emma.
Do you want me to talk about the mantra question, Terry? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I think it froze for a second there.
Yes, it froze.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Do you want me to talk about the mantra question that's on there?
Yeah, thanks, Sue.
Okay. So the Hindus, you know, as you all know, there's so many different paths to connecting to God consciousness, and I love them all. Hindus, Buddhists, Catholics, Theosophy. I've studied everything, Native American spirituality, unity, everything. And the Hindus, I think every path kind of gets a little piece of it right. Like if we could combine the good pieces of all of those different religious paths, we would have it figured out. But the thing the Hindus really got right was how to meditate and quiet the mind. And they used sacred sound, specifically Sanskrit sounds and words. And Sanskrit is the highest vibrational language used here on earth, specifically to connect to the other side and to God. So when you hear the Hindu mantras like Om, which means God, many spiritual teachers say that when you cross over, the sound you hear on the other side is the Om, the sound of God. And I have heard that in my out-of-body visions. And so that's a very sacred word. And my favorite mantra that I use and I recommend to my clients is Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, because it has the greatest rhythm, those three words, Om Namah Shivaya, and they mean in English, I connect to the divine, or I connect to God, but you don't want to think about the meaning in English. You just want to use that Sanskrit rhythm. Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, and close your eyes and let this beautiful rhythm of Om Namah Shivaya marinate you and quiet your mind. And your thoughts are going to jump in, and you notice your thoughts and you go, oh, that's interesting. But right now I'm focused on my mantra, and you just refocus your mind gently on Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. At the end of 10 minutes of that, and eventually 20 minutes of that in one sitting, you will find so much inner peace, just getting a break from the monkey mind and getting back realigned with your soul, your spirit, your higher self. So that's the mantra I use. And, you know, anything that works for you is great. But I really have heard from so many people that the Sanskrit mantras really help them quiet the mind and make it a very pleasant experience to sit in meditation.
I missed a little bit of that, I'm afraid, because my connection got lost.
I hope you guys can still hear me, though. Am I freezing too?
Did everybody hear that okay?
Okay.
So, yeah. Okay, perfect. As long as y'all did.
And how many of you know about numerology and know your own soul mission path through numerology? Well, I'm going to have to give you a link to my workbook. Afterwards, Terry, if I email you the link and they can download it to, from Google Docs or something, we'll do that so that you guys can all figure it out. It's very easy to figure it out. And then all my books explain how that works in terms of your soul agreement. Two good questions here. Can I mention the shared death experience? I love talking about that. And can you explain what numerology is? I love talking about that. So the shared death experience, people now officially call it that. But I have to say, when I experienced my first shared death experience, there was no name for it. It hadn't really been talked about yet. And it happened when my husband, Paul, died in 1979. And I'll explain how mine worked. And I've had other ones since then that blow my socks off. They're so amazing. But the first one was Paul dying and crossing over. And I was at his side. He was in the hospital. He died from colon cancer. And as he was in this coma when we got to the hospital, and I was so upset because he had said, I don't want to die in the hospital and I want to be home in your arms. And I promised him that. And suddenly, due to some medical emergencies, here we were in the hospital, and I felt I had let him down. And so after a long vigil at his side, all of our friends were there, I fell asleep on the floor of the hospital room, just exhausted. And he was in the bed with that coma breathing that some of you know about, very painful to listen to. And it hadn't changed for days. He was in that coma, and I fell asleep, and he appeared to me so vivid that it was more real than real life. And he said, I'm fine. I'm free of that body. I'm just waiting for you to get up and hold me the way you said you would. And he was so clear about it. And he was so happy to be free. And so it like woke me up. I got up off the floor of the hospital room and I looked around, and like it was chaos. All his friends were in the room chatting it up and everything. I said, everybody out. I just had a dream. Paul is ready to go. And I got his mom to stand on one side of him in the bed, and I stood on the other. And even though his breathing had not changed at all for 24 or 48 hours, we both stood there holding him. And I kept saying, it's your time to go, and I'm good with it. I'll be fine. Let your spirit go and be free. And he took this deep sigh that was so beautiful and intentional. And his spirit left his body at that moment, and I saw his spirit leave his body. He showed that to me, and his spirit actually flew out the window to the mountains, because he had always been a mountaineer, a mountain climber. And I knew in every cell of my body that his spirit had just left his body and was free, and he had shown that to me. And so from that day on, it was probably 2 to 3 weeks where I was not here on earth. I saw Paul and spirit everywhere. I could hardly eat food because it felt dense and heavy, and I was like completely connected to the divine. I can't even explain it to you. I was in a complete altered state for almost 2 weeks. And my friends were like, what is wrong with Sue? She's not sad. She's like happy. Like they thought I needed medication or something. And I was just walking around going, it was so beautiful. I've seen his soul. He's free. He's happy. And I was so elevated. And that was Paul's gift to me, to show me the beauty of the other side, and to make me know in every cell in my body that there is no death, and that life continues beyond death. So how many of you feel you've also had a shared death experience? And it can be different from mine, where you feel lifted up in your own way. Well, there has, the other thing is that can come in dreams, and just in case maybe that's how it occurred with you. when my best girlfriend, Chrissy, died a couple years after Paul died. She'd been my childhood friend. We had always laughed together, me and Chrissy. She'd made me crazy laugh when she was here on Earth in a way where I would always like pee in my pants when I was with her because she was so hysterically funny. And I'd always be saying, Chrissy, stop, you're making me pee in my pants, you know? And so I knew she had had leukemia. She'd had a bone marrow transplant. It happened right after Paul died. It was very devastating to me. And so I had moved to Mexico because in my early 30s, after Paul died, and then after Chrissy got sick, I wanted to forget about life on Earth. And so my idea was, well, I'll go to Mexico, teach fitness at a resort, you know, and just give up. And so I did that. And I was living in this little Mexican apartment. And one night, and you couldn't get a call to the States back then. There were no cell phones, and you had to go make an operator assisted call, and they would call the States, and then they'd call you back when the call had gone through. And so I went to sleep one night, not even thinking about Chrissy, and I thought she was in remission. The last time we had talked a few months before, she was in remission. And on this night, Chrissy showed up all night with me, making me laugh so hard with her and lifting me up, flying me around, showing me Earth, showing me our friends doing stuff, making me laugh, that my stomach hurt from laughing just the way it did when she was on Earth. And I would laugh so hard, my stomach muscles would hurt. And I would even woke up that night in the middle of the night going, oh my God, I'm dreaming about Chrissy. My stomach hurts. And then I'd go back to sleep and it would continue because Chrissy was still showing me things. And so that morning when I really woke up for good, I was like, wow, I was with Chrissy all night. What does that mean? And so I went and tried to get a call through to the States. And finally it was like afternoon before I got the call back. And they told me she had crossed over in the night. And I knew Chrissy had come to show me that everything was good on the other side, that she was free and happy and making me laugh from the other side. And that was a very profound shared death experience.
Sue, I had an experience a few years ago, just about three, and a friend's partner, ex-partner, he had cancer, and a mutual friend had got in touch with me and said that he had been put into the hospice on Friday, and he was in a lot of pain and it wasn't good, and So that weekend, I got in touch with every healer that I knew and groups that I knew, and everybody sent them healing, like Reiki healing, spiritual readings, all said healing. I just asked people to send healing. So there was Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. On the Monday night, he hadn't passed or anything, but he came to me in a dream, and I knew it was him. And I woke up in the morning and I went, oh, Mike, he just came in the dream and he said, thanks for all the healing, it's really helping.
Say that again. I couldn't hear that phrase.
Sorry. He said, thanks for all the healing you're sending. It's really helping.
Oh,
and
that's so
he
great.
passed within days after that. But it was so real. Like when I woke up,
yes.
It was a conversation. Like I just knew that he was there.
Yeah.
Soul to soul. And the day of his service, his daughter, we were talking because she's so open to. He was open to. He was into spiritual out-of-body experiences and things when he was here. And I spoke to his daughter at the day of the service, and she got so much comfort from it. She's like so open to the experiences, you know, and she says, oh, I didn't know you did that. I go, your dad did.
That's so great. Oh, all of you beautiful energy workers and mediums and intuitives. You know, we are the brave souls who choose not to follow the conventional beliefs of the left brain logic world. And so I believe we're the holders of the light. We are the ones that help shift consciousness here from that higher place. And I love that story, Terry, where you sent all that healing energy that actually helped him lift out of the body. We all need that kind of help, because leaving the body, you know, if we have a lot of loved ones around us, especially,
Yeah.
it's so hard to leave. And so the more energy we can send to somebody and say, for your highest good, we support you wherever you're going and however you're going to get there. We just are here to love on you. It really helps the soul release and rise up like that.
So I think it was Teresa. Could you explain what numerology is, Sue?
Oh, thank you. Forgot about that one. Okay. Pythagoras is the Greek philosopher who started the entire number system that we use today in math class when you were a kid and you learned to count to 10. That was Pythagoras who created all that. But he also, at the time, created a school for enlightenment. Funny how they didn't teach us that back then in school. But Pythagoras believed, and this is in like 650 BC or something, he believed that every number carried a sacred energy. And it wasn't just a quantity. So the number 4 does not just mean 4 apples. It also has all these other meanings like strong, courageous, physically strong, resilient, all these things. And so in his school for enlightenment, he taught Pythagorean numerology way back, you know, before there were any kind of like, I wish I had his workbook, you know. And then since then, numerology has kind of been on the fringes, not as accepted as astrology, which kind of baffles me because I believe they both work together so beautifully. And I can tell you so many ways that astrology and numerology merge to really help you see your soul's mission. But, you know, back when Paul died, I had rarely heard of numerology in the 70s. I had heard a lot more about astrology, but that never kind of resonated with me as my path to spiritual learning. And so when Paul died and a girlfriend said, I'm going to give you this numerology reading from a friend as a gift, and the numerologist showed up and in 1 hour explained my soul mission, Paul's soul mission, what our soul agreement was. And I became obsessed, and I kept a notebook, and every person I met or knew, I'd get their date of birth and figured out, because even back then it was before the internet. Like I went to the Boulder bookstore and could find one book on numerology, and I still have it. Every page is marked up and the corners are turned. But what I learned from studying it was that you have to get to a place where the numbers kind of speak to you, get way beyond what just the meaning of that number is. And on a funny note, when I was really immersing myself in the spiritual understanding of numerology, which is what I call myself, a spiritual master numerologist, because I don't just go, oh, well, you're a 4, and so you're this way and that way, and isn't that cute? No, I look at it as your soul decided that the lesson you wanted to most overcome and learn about in this lifetime was resonant with this number 5 path, for example. So Jeff, my friend who died, who had addictions, he was on the 5 path. The 5 is the path of learning your lessons through addiction, through your physical body, through indulgence, through charisma. Everything comes to you. It's a great, fun path as long as you make the right choices for higher self. So Jeff perfectly expressed that path in his own problems and challenges, and in his beauty and his light. And so once I started to study it that way, the interesting thing is at night, these guides would come to me. It was like they were saying, okay, you're ready to really understand what numerology is. And they would just pour this stuff down. And one of them, you guys will laugh, was George Harrison. Apparently, and I loved the Beatles growing up and all of that, but George came forward, and for probably a year of my studies in numerology, I'd wake up in the morning going, George just explained what the number 7 is really about. And I'd be taking notes and writing it all down. And So I feel like George Harrison on the other side was one of my numerology teachers and really helped me go in depth with how I look at it now. And so I caution you, when you do go read about numerology, look for the more spiritually in-depth view of it. There are a lot of famous numerologists out there who I think are so superficial and trivial, I can't even watch them or listen to them. Look for the more profound meaning. Think of George Harrison, wise old soul that he is and was, and look for that kind of resonance, deeper meaning, because your path is not just, hey, I'm going to do this great thing on earth. No, this is the challenge I'm coming to overcome. These are the gifts I'm bringing with me. And it's my intent that I will rise up to the highest part of expressing my soul mission rather than wallowing in the negativity. However, my soul is going to evolve either way. I hope that answers your question. So for basic answer, if you want to know your soul mission for this lifetime, take your date of birth, your day, month, and year, and make them all, single digits and add them up. You can do it horizontally is kind of the easiest way to explain. And you get a double digit number at the end, and then you add those two digits together and get a single digit. And that's basically it, although there are other complicated parts to the master soul numbers and stuff. So I'll send you a workbook through Terry that will help explain it.
I'll pop it into the group to everyone. So.
And one other thing about numerology is that I really think, after all these years of doing it, that the most helpful part of it can be the 9-year reinvention cycles that numerology illustrates for us, because it's just so flawless the way they show up. In the deepest cynic about numerology, I'll be going through their chart with them, showing them, here, you had a reinvention point when you were this age. Tell me what happened. And they'll go, oh, that's when my parents got a divorce, And so you start looking at this and going, your soul created a timetable for your life, and it's all illustrated through these 9-year reinvention points. And it helps you understand, you didn't do anything wrong when you hit that point in your life where your whole life blew up. No, that was a big reinvention point. You had already put it in your life plan, and numerology expresses that. So for example, we have a 28-year-old son who is in the middle of his Saturn return, and he's in a 9 personal year. The combination of Saturn return and the year of surrender, the 9, can make your life feel like you're in complete upheaval, but it's a great time of transition, self-discovery, and really kicking your life up to the next level. So our son is this very powerful already businessman in Los Angeles, and kind of went poo-poo to all my woo-woo when he was growing up, right? And especially the numbers, like he was like, okay, whatever. And I kept trying to explain his path to him, but he just wouldn't hear it. And so now that his life, he's in that Saturn return 9-year, he doesn't even know that was where he is. Suddenly he's calling us every day, telling us about all these ways that his life is imploding and he's feeling really lost. And I'm sitting there going, this is so good, Kai, because look, it's your Saturn return and your 9 personal year. This is all helping you own your power in a better way in your life. And he says it's helping him view this moment in his journey in a whole different way. Even the most cynical person in the world hits that reinvention point, and then they're very open to how the numbers might be helping them.
Amazing. So Sue, I just, because we're just about finished out of time, but you do have online courses for numerology and things on your website.
Yes, and I'm going to be teaching another one soon. So if you just go to my website, you'll find all the live events. They're all mostly on Zoom. And also at the Helping Parents Heal conference in August in Arizona, I'll be doing a numerology class. So I hope you're there.
Oh, I'll be there.
It'll be so fun. And then I've also got videos and recordings on my website of it, and some self-guided classes on there that you can take. And then YouTube, just a whole bunch of resources. And my books, I know you guys are far away, but you can get the Kindle version of my books on Amazon and just read about the numbers there.
It would be nice
I've got,
to, we have a book club in the UK group. So I'm interested in perhaps the book you mentioned.
Divine Lens.
Your Divine Lens.
Yes.
Yeah. That's on
so
Amazon.
We'll plan to put that in one of our book clubs so that people.
I'd love that. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And actually a new updated version of that book will be out next spring by Inner Traditions Publishing. And I was able to add into that book now the soul regression stories, because I'm also a certified soul regression therapist. So I can guide people to go back and have a conversation with their guides and ask why they chose this life plan and see a past lifetime that gives them meaning for today. So I was able to put some of those client stories of soul regressions in the updated version of Your Divine Lens that's coming out in the spring. And some of them are the grieving moms. And actually, Elizabeth, she didn't even want me to change her name. She was proud of her story, and I was like, cool. And in her past lifetime, it'll be in my book. And in her past lifetime that she experienced, she was a Satguru yogi in India. Like, no surprise to us, right? So anyway. Thank you all.
And thank you so much, Sue, for coming along and talking to us.